Yesterday I filled out the application for Currency Financial for truck loan. So we'll have to wait and see, if that gets approved, and then we'll move forward with purchasing a truck. I'm really thinking about buying another Crete truck. I've kind of settled on that, on a 2022 Freightliner Cascadia. The big thing with that is it's low mileage, 400,000 miles, has 2 year additional Daimler EN4 warranty for up to 7 years or 750,000 miles, whichever comes first. So I think, when I look at all the trucks out there, that that's probably the most bang for the buck. And then when you buy from Crete, you don't pay sales tax because Nebraska doesn't have sales tax on trucks. So you save, about 6% on the price of the truck just from not having to pay sales tax. So we'll have to wait and see how things go. But I've created a number of options. I could buy the truck and finance it through Crete. I could buy the truck and finance it through Currency Financial. I could not buy that truck and go with a different truck altogether, like from Schneider or somewhere else, the truckpaper.com. Or I could look at some high mileage used trucks, sort of like a temporary situation where I could get into a high mileage used truck, drive it for 6 months or so, and then buy another truck. It all depends. Now, one of the things with Currency Financial, even though my credit score is over 800 and I'm putting in a sizable down payment, one drawback might be that because I'm in between trucks. Right now I'm just running as a company driver until I buy my third truck. And they wanted 3 months bank statements for the lender to evaluate the truck loan. Well, when you do that, it doesn't show what your net income would be as an owner operator. It shows what your income is as a company driver. So that could affect the loan application. So we'll have to wait and see. Um, Even though I have 10 years experience as an owner operator, I can go back and provide them 1099, annual compensation documentation. Plus, I can give them a credit reference letter from Crete that shows I purchased 2 trucks. So we'll see how that goes. But when you're in this process, you got to be flexible with your expectations and what your hopes are for a new truck. You got to keep a lot of options available because you don't know how this is going to land in the end. I did another video called Plan A to Z. Plan A all the way to Plan Z. Oftentimes Plan A goes right out the window and you're on to Plan B. So buying this truck through Crete and financing it through Currency is kind of like, I would say, Plan C. I'm on like Plan C right now. So we'll see how that goes. Not in a hurry. I still have, a time frame of 1-2 months to work with before I really want to have my own truck, my third truck, and get back at it. But we'll see how things go. But this is the process. It really is. It's a process. You got to manage the process. I would never focus in on just one truck, and especially if it was like from another owner operator or from truckpaper.com, I wouldn't zero in on just one truck. I think you have to create options. Now, if you get that truck, fine, that's fine, but I would recommend you try to identify 4 or 5 different options, different pieces of equipment. A lot of things can happen. The truck you're interested may be sold before you can buy it, or somebody else could come in with a higher price, or the buyer could change their mind, or you find a better deal, a better bargain somewhere else. It's not uncommon for guys to want, good money for their truck, for their used truck, even though it has high mileage. And for that kind of money, you may be better off making a down payment on a newer used truck. So then you gotta evaluate what your options are. You can say, okay, I can buy that high mileage used truck with no warranty. It's going to have a lot of repair costs. or I can buy a newer used truck with low miles and it comes with a warranty, but at a higher price. I actually ran this scenario through Grok, the AI system, and Grok recommended the lower mileage, higher price used truck as the best bang for the buck over a 3-year period. He said the high mileage used truck is going to require more repairs and more downtime, and by the end of 3 years, you're going to be spending more money on the high mileage truck than you are going to be on the low mileage truck. So there's an example of using AI to help guide you through some of the decision-making process. These are some tough decisions, and they include tens of thousands of dollars. It could be a massive mistake buying the wrong truck. It's like you could try to save money up front buying a high mileage truck, but as AI pointed out, it will cost you more over that same 3-year time frame to keep it on the road than if you went and bought a low mileage used truck that came with a warranty. That was one of the great benefits of using AI, was to help guide you through the decision making process. You're faced with two choices. Which one are you going to go with? Now, obviously, the high mileage used truck costs less. You probably could pay cash for it, but you'll fight like hell trying to keep it on the road. So having already been there, done that, I really don't want to do that again. That was not necessarily fun, being broke down on the side of the road all the time. It's a ticking time bomb. But over the years, they've improved the durability of some of these parts. I think the after treatment systems, for example, are much more durable in these 126 models than they were in the 125 models. And that's really was your largest expense, $20,000 for a new one box. But if they're made more durable, the odds of them failing before reaching 750,000 miles is lessened. I won't say it's zero, but it's improved greatly. Same thing with some of the DEF components. Although my last truck did have DEF issues, I had to replace the DEF metering unit, DEF doser pump, the DEF pump. It was all covered under warranty, but it did have DEF issues. But I think all trucks have DEF issues. But we're going through this. It's a process. It's just a process, and it's going to take probably a couple weeks to get approval from currency, if we get it. If we don't get it, the only reason we wouldn't get it is because the bank statements don't show income that they would want from an owner operator, because I'm in between trucks. I think that's the only holdup, because credit score is over 800 and there's no debt on the credit report. They pulled my Equifax credit report, which was strange because most people use TransUnion or Experian, but they actually use Equifax. I'm like, oh, okay, we can make that happen. Currency uses a network of lenders, like 31 different lenders. So odds are they'll come back with some approval, but it may not be the interest rate I'm looking for. Now, Grok thinks because of my credit rating and my experience as an owner operator, that I should be getting anywhere between 5 to 7% APR on that loan. I think that's incredibly low, but it could be true. I don't know. That's about half of what, or more than half of what you would pay for a personal loan. So that loan there would be a great loan to get if you can get it, because that's cheap money. I think when you're looking at interest rates below 10% nowadays, that's considered cheap money. That's money you want to borrow. When interest rates go 15 to 20%, that becomes a little more expensive money. You're comparing interest rates. But we'll have to wait and see how things go. We just gotta let it play out. The wheels are in motion. Now it's just wait and see how things develop. So, but we're not in a hurry. It's perfectly fine. Just take our time. This is my third truck, so this isn't anything new. It's not a novel experience. It's like I know exactly what's entailed, and It's always great the first year as an owner operator, that 400 to 500,000 mile range. That's one of your best years. Truck has low mileage, and it's under warranty. You know, um, year two is not as good, but not terrible. And then year three, you're looking at selling the truck. At some point during year three. You get beyond year three, then you're looking at nightmare scenarios. I would not recommend it. But for some guys, they have to see it to believe it. So, they'll have to take the truck all the way up to 1 million miles in order to see it for themselves. But it'll probably make them better owner operators if they did. There's no substitute for experience. You could watch all the videos, you can talk to all your buddies, and you can ask AI, but there's no substitute for hands-on experience. Taking a truck up to 1 million miles is going to give you hands-on experience. May not be the experience you bargained for, but it is going to be good experience. You may not think so at the time when you're getting towed multiple times and you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for truck repairs because they're not under warranty. But the idea here in the buyer's market, what the buyer has to do is the buyer has to do their homework and they have to create options. You can't zero in on one truck. You got to have options. You got to be willing to walk away from a bad deal. You can't be so zeroed in on one truck that, you're willing to pay a premium price for that truck. There are other trucks out there that are a better bargain, and that goes with the interest rates too. Crete charges 10 to 11% interest on those loans. If I can get a loan that pays 5 or 7%, that's a better deal. And when you get your financing outside of Crete, now you don't have the speed limiter. Now you don't have the required maintenance account. Now you don't have the apron strings that says you can't leave until the truck's paid off. You have so much more freedom. You don't have a truck that's governed. Your money is your money. You don't have to ask permission to spend your money from a required maintenance account. And if you want to pick up and go to a different carrier at a moment's notice, you can do that. I think Crete requires a 30-day notice, but you can leave whenever you want and take your truck with you. So there's huge advantages there to get your financing outside of Crete. Now, in order to qualify for financing, you have to have like a minimum of 2 years owner-operator experience. So you couldn't be a brand new owner-operator and go get truck financing. I think this is one of the benefits of going through Crete as a rookie, is they are willing to finance you a truck. Not everyone's going to finance a truck for owner-operators, and probably nobody's going to finance a truck for a rookie. So you almost have to go through the carrier for your first truck. And typically that's a 3-year loan. But after that, if you've been working on your credit, you got 3 years owner-operator experience, now's the time to go shop for a better interest rate. Get your financing somewhere else when you go to purchase your second truck. I should have done it on my last truck, but I didn't, and I regret that decision. So now we're getting ready to buy a third truck. That's what I'm leaning towards, is financing other through Crete. In the end, we may finance through Crete if no other options are available, but we'll take a look at it. I decided to stick with Freightliner because that's the devil I know. I'm very familiar with the DD15 and the Daimler warranty. If I go to Peterbilt, which would be interesting, but I don't know anything about Peterbilts. And I definitely don't know anything about their warranty coverage. And I'm not willing to pay to find out. The safer play for me was stick with the devil which was the Freightliner Cascadia, and make sure you get that warranty. That warranty is your biggest business decision out there. Of all the things you can do, having the warranty is the best thing you can do. Buying a truck without a warranty is not advisable. Not advisable, especially for a rookie. It's not advisable. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.